for mucking in, those who are still here and who have left, and also the contractors for reconfiguring the room in such a immaculate way. Thank you very much indeed to everyone. I need to read the emergency evacuation announcement, so please bear with me. There are no planned fire drills, so if the alarm goes off, please leave the building in an orderly fashion through the nearest fire exit. Please use the fire exit through the main doors of the hall or the fire exit in the storeroom adjacent to the stage. The fire assembly point is the island in front of the main entrance to the building. Please do not delay your evacuation to collect any belongings. Please do not return to the building until given permission to do so by council staff. Please switch off mobile phones or turn them to silent. Please note the meeting will be live streamed, and for members, please ensure your microphone is switched on when speaking and you clearly speak into the microphone. There are members of the public present, so members of the public and press, whilst you are, of course, entitled to film or take photographs during this meeting, can I emphasise to you that this should only be done without disruption to the meeting and can only be done from a designated area in the public seating. Can I please therefore ask you to raise your hand clearly in the air if you wish to take photographs or film this evening? There is no one, thank you. Item 1 of the agenda, apologies for absence. There are none. Non-members attending. I have Councillor Mrs. Belton, Councillor Mrs. McPherson, Councillor Mr. Myers, Councillor Mr. Steptoe, Councillor Mr. Gooding, Councillor Mr. FD, Councillor Mr. Sperring, and I think that completes the order. If I missed anyone, please raise your hand. Thank you. Item 3, minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of February 2024. Members of the Executive Committee, is it your wish that I sign these minutes as being a true and fair copy of the meeting that you attended?
Agreed.
Agreed. I shall sign the minutes. Thank you. Item 4, to receive declarations of interest. Members, are there any declarations you need to make?
Sorry, can I just, do I need the Rayleigh Town Council, the right track, do I need to do that now? The lighting? No, thanks, sorry, Chairman.
Thank you. There are no declarations of interest. Questions on notice for councillors, item 5. Members, I have independently reviewed each of the questions myself to see if they stand up on their own to enable them to be answered. In my view, each of the questions require no further elaboration by way of additional personal statements. I will not, therefore, be exercising that discretion tonight for those reasons and additionally the length of the agenda. The first question, and the questioner is Councillor Daniel Efty. Daniel, would you like to come to the microphone, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Right, item 7 on the report tonight, 2.16, states that there will still be a council presence / reception in Rochford Town in part of the library in Rochford Town Centre. But it does not state for how long. Will the leader of the council commit to there being an official council presence / reception in Rochford Town Centre indefinitely?
Thank you, Daniel. Councillor Efty, thank you for your question. Paragraph 2.19 of the report states that Essex County Council is offering Rochford District Council a 5-year licence with appropriate break clauses. I am not able to give assurances about the use of the library for longer than that 5-year period, as there would need to be a review of arrangements and negotiations between ourselves and at Essex County Council at the end of the licence or lease. In my view, it would be inappropriate for this council to make an indefinite decision about our reception provision. The needs and requirements of our customers and the public will no doubt change over the next 5 years, and we need to be able to adapt and respond to these changing needs. What I can commit to is that we will continue to keep our front-facing presence under review so that we're able to continue to meet the needs of our residents and provide the highest quality services. Councillor Efti, is there a supplementary question to the question you have asked?
There was, but you've answered it in your statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Efti. Best turn it on. Question 2. Councillor Mike Steptoe, would you like to come to the microphone? Thank you.
My question is to the Leader of the Council and in relation to item 7 of the agenda. Has consideration been given to using number 19 South Street, Rochford, as a unit for homeless in the same way as units nearby in Rochford, instead of paying substantial costs for bed and breakfast in hotels and in a lot of cases outside the district, enabling families to stay within the district and schools that children are used to attending?
Thank you, Councillor Steptoe, for your question. At this stage, the Executive is not considering the options for the future use of 19 South Street. An options appraisal looking at all possible opportunities will be brought to full council early in the municipal year as part of the business cases for the future use of each of our assets. This will be informed by public engagement on the regeneration of Rochford, which we have recently agreed to fund in the budget. Councillor Steptoe, is there a supplementary question on the original question you asked?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Steptoe. Thank you, Councillor McPherson. Thank you very much. You may ask the question.
Thank you, Chairman. For openness and transparency, I'm not allowed to express the concerns that I've raised before, so I shall go straight to my question to the lead member for public spaces and assets. In response to my question at full council on the 20th of February, the leader replied, "Until meaningful market research has been undertaken, those monies," referring to the money put aside for the Mill Hall, "will not be spent. Only the vital amounts that need to be spent on the building will be spent on the building until its future is understood and can be commended on a sustainable basis." So my question is, on page 13.6, 4.5, the current capital programme for the Mill Hall is 267,275, with a further 845,000 allocated for the 2024-25 budget. Reflecting on the answer on the 20th of February, how much of this 845,000 would be considered vital amounts that need to be spent on the building?
Thank you, Councillor Mrs. McPherson. Councillor Vilma Wilson.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Hello, Councillor McPherson. Your question asks how much of the £845,000 would be considered vital amounts that need to be spent on Mill Hall Arts and Events Centre for year 24-25. I can assure you that the total amount is allocated for this reason. The entire sum is for essential works for current operation of the building to keep the building compliant and to replace only necessary items as they come to end of life. The latest condition report is in exempt, and in there members can find recommendations on the necessary compliance work and end-of-life replacements or repairs and suggested timescales. Thank you for your question.
Councillor Mrs Macpherson, is there a supplementary question based on your original question, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Bearing in mind the impact of these costs on the budget process, have any services that this council delivered in 2023-24, statutory or otherwise, been cut for this coming municipal year?
I'm really sorry, Councillor. Can you repeat that question?
Bearing in mind the impact of these costs on the budget process, have any services that this council delivered in 2023-24, statutory or otherwise, been cut for this coming municipal year?
May I intervene at this point? Having taken advice from the monitoring officer, that question can't be answered because Councillor Vilma Wilson is not the lead member for that particular subject matter. So I'm sorry, we can't answer it here, but I recommend that maybe the lead member for finance provides you a written answer after the meeting.
Thank you.
Just confirm I'm happy to do that, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Very kind of you. Item 6. Item 6 is matters referred to the executive and reports from other committees. Councillor Hoy, I believe you are presenting this as the chair of the Climate Emergency Committee, and I'm going to ask you to take the two items under 6.1, 6.2 separately. So could I ask you to speak to the first one, please, which is on the 3G pitches position statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I will be proposing a slight amendment to the recommendation 1, but firstly, just go through the report. This report is intended to give us a position statement which allows us to defend a policy which I'm trying to get the right words, which addresses the concerns raised about the environmental impact of plastic pitches. As it says in 2.3, most commonly this relates to the fibre loss of microplastics, and in the case of third generation or 3G pitches, the presence of rubber infill. The report speaks for itself. I'm happy to take any questions, or I'm sure Mr. Hotton would also take questions on it. The amendment I want to propose on R1 is to remove the word draft. So the R1 would read, the position statement as set out in paragraph 5.1 is adopted by the council. So when it went to the committee, it was draft, and now we're saying it's no longer draft. If that's, I don't know if I've got a seconder for that.
Councillor Mrs Gooding.
Okay.
Members, at this point, the matter is open for discussion and amendment or questions, and please address them via the chair to Councillor Michael Hoy or to Marcus Hotton, the Director of Environment. Thank you. Any question? Thank you. Councillor Newport. Mr. Newport, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. If I just come to page 6.1211 and draw your attention to the section 106. Could Mr. Hotton just confirm that section 106 agreement, the end date of that, and will that remain in place or be negotiable if we do not decide to proceed with 3G pitches? And then my second question, if I may, would be, would this policy form part of our planning policies going forward And would this feed into the new local plan? Thank you.
Who's going to take it? Councillor Houghton? Councillor? Yes, Houghton. Yes, what a good one.
Yeah, heaven forbid. Thank you. So yes, on the first one, I'd have to come back to you on the exact timing of the 106 agreement, but usually these things can be negotiated if there's a valid reason, which there is in this case. So, you know, it's acceptable in this situation for the 106 to be moved along slightly in time scales, and there is scope within the 106 agreement to do so. On the second question, I've looked to, I haven't got I'd probably answer that as well in that, so the short answer is no, that's an entirely different matter. So it is a planning policy decision to be made, so it's part of the local plan review. So this in itself does not constitute anything that would set a precedent for how you'd make a decision on the planning applications.
Any further questions, members? Anybody wish to speak? In which case, we've got recommendation R1, which has been put by Councillor Michael Hoy, seconded by Councillor Mrs Gooding. I will read it. The amended position statement set out above in paragraph 1.3 is adopted by the council. Members, can I ask for your votes in favour, please, of the recommendation? Can you please show by hand? I believe that looks unanimous to me. Thank you very much. Councillor Hoy, can you move to now the item which is designated 6.2, which is the report of the Climate Emergency Committee, financial appraisal of RDC 2030 net zero carbon target. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, I will give a brief introduction, and then if any questions, either myself or Mr Houghton will answer them. This is a report from the Climate Committee to look at how we can reduce our carbon output and get on track to get to net zero by 2030. We can't do that without incurring costs. Some we can do without costs, actually, but these are the ones which will cost us money to do. These are not committing us to spend these amounts of money. This is putting us on a path to see, one, if we can do these things and where the money might come from. So it could be that if we approve these tonight, it's not committing us to spending in R3, for instance, £750,000. It's saying to consider the allocation of capital. Now that capital might come from grant funding we obtained during the year or a year up to 2030, or it could be that there is a lump of money falls from the sky, maybe, which I think is doubtful, or there is funding available through other sources. So this is not committing, this is not changing the budget or the capital budget that we have already committed to. This is saying that we have a plan in place if we can get funding. So it allows us to look for other sources of funding. So I just want to be clear, it's not changing anything we've done already. This is there, so we have a plan in place. We can pick it up and say, yes, we can go for that funding if we need it for this project. So I just wanted to be that clear. On the basis of these, the first one is the green is looking for a carbon zero electricity tariff for the council buildings. That would be useful if we can do that at very little cost. That would be ideal. We could do that. The second one is for biofuel, which I know we've spoken about extensively, either at full council and in the Climate Committee. And the third one is for capital funding to deliver any energy saving improvements. And this could include insulation, lighting, new windows, could include solar power on roofs of some of the buildings. This is an interesting one because it could be possible that these, although it sounds a lot of money, 750,000, there are potential payback times of sort of 3 to 4 years on this. So it would be very short-term borrowing if we did it, if we wanted to borrow, or if the grants were available, that we would make, after 5 years, we're making more money than we were before. So that's a brief summary of it. If I'd read out I don't know if you want me to read out the recommendations or if you would like to, Chairman, when we come to the vote, but I'll be proposing them.
Councillor Hoy, I think it might be just helpful, given the wide range in the report and the very wide range of opportunities, that we give the executive members a chance to make general questions and then move to the recommendations after that. Is that
Absolutely.
okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Eaves, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. In light of the explanation that Councillor Hoy has given, can I suggest a little amendment to the recommendations as they are worded to make them clearer, to sound much more like Councillor Hoy is actually describing, in that R2 and R3 especially, to consider the allocation to consider the future allocation of an additional 84,000, and R3 to consider the future allocation of 750,000. That makes it
Where is R3, please?
R3 to consider the future allocation of.
Thank you. Are you moving an amendment?
Yes, please.
Okay, is there a seconder for that amendment? Or would Councillor Hoy accept it?
I think Councillor Stanley beat me to it.
So Councillor Stanley has seconded that amendment.
Yes, I'll second that, Chair.
We are still in the situation where we're talking about any questions. We'll hold that amendment until those questions are completed. Members, are there any further questions? Councillor Stanley, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I was going to put that forward as to future allocation, but the reason that I say this is that at this moment in time, and it's written here, our fleet is using mineral diesel, and should we consider to go to the vegetable oil situation, that will be a cost to all the vehicles, and I'm not too sure if 84,000 would be sufficient to cover all the vehicles. I do believe that we'd have to change quite a considerable amount to use that fuel. So I would like to change the 84,000 to an additional sum unknown at the moment. Now, this is like we're considering 84,000, but I don't consider that 84,000 will be sufficient for that.
Councillor Stanley, I'm sorry, that won't be an acceptable amendment within the scheme of the council's governance. We can't approve an unknown amount. Thank you.
Sorry, Mark.
No,
I
Sorry.
ask if Mr. Houghton could answer we went through quite extensively about the costs for HVO, I'll call it, or biofuel, and this was the cost which came out. Obviously, it does fluctuate from time to time, but the most likely scenario is that the costs in time will come down anyway. I don't know if Mr. Houghton's anything else to add.
Thank you. Just for clarity, it's an additional 84,000. So the fuel was about 300,000. So it's about 384,000 in total. So it's around, I think about 30% premium on biodiesel over mineral diesel. But it's come down actually even in the last couple of weeks. But it's an indicative cost of the kind of sort of commitment you require to get to net zero. I think that's what we're just trying to map out.
Councillor Mr. Newport, did you have a question? I thought I saw you indicating at the corner of my eye. Just
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to clarify, what period is this over, the future allocation? If we were to consider, over what period are we considering those figures? Because they're quite specific. And I just want to understand, is this just in this budget year, or is this for the next 5 years, or just
I'm happy to answer that question. If I make a mistake, I'm sure Mr. Houghton will come in forcefully. The recommendation to the 84,000 revenue budget is an annual cost. So that's how much it would be per year based on the costs at the time of the report. As I indicated earlier, and as Mr. Houghton said, the prices can fluctuate and they have come down recently. Recommendation 3 is a capital cost, so the total spending would be £750,973, and there would be no further costs on top of that, but there would be savings because we will be saving money for lighting, heating, and we'll be generating power as well through the solar panels. Thank you.
Any further questions, members? Councillor Wilson. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. More comments really, Chair, because I'm not too sure where the committee can go with this, so I apologise if this is inappropriate. But 2.4 talks about a 9.6% increase, and para 2.10, referring to HVO, talks about a possible 34% per annum increase. I would just like it noted, if that's possible, that in this cost of living crisis, that is a huge increase to our costs that we currently have, and I have quite concerns over that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councillor Mrs. Wilson. I think the situation is that I think your comment can be minuted. Any further questions, members? Right, we do have amendments to R2 and R3, and I still have obviously the proposer and seconders listed as Councillor Eaves and seconded by Councillor Stanley. I just want to ask before we proceed to take the amendment and then go back to the substantive motions, whether Councillor Hoy would agree to the amendments and put them himself.
Yes, I'm very happy with the amendment. Thank you. Amendments. Thank you.
Do you wish to put them, Councillor Hoy?
I'm happy to read out R1 to R3. Yes, now
With the
additional
thank you
wording
very much.
R2 and R3. If I get it in the wrong place, I'm sure Councillor Eaves will correct me. But
I
think
will
I've got
equally
it.
jump in, don't worry.
Yes. I turned it off. Members are asked to recommend to the executive R1 to explore a zero carbon electricity tariff for the council corporate suppliers. R2, to consider the future allocation of an additional £84,000 revenue budget for the purchase of the procurement of green diesel, in brackets hydro-treated vegetable oil, close brackets, for the council fleet currently using mineral diesel. R3, to consider the future allocation of a £750,973 of capital funding to deliver energy saving improvements to council assets as set out in the report.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Moved by you. Councillor Eaves, would you be prepared to second that as the instigator of the change?
Yes, certainly.
Thank you very much, Councillor Eaves. Right, members, are you happy for me to take those as a block of R1 to R3?
No, I'm sorry, Chair. My preference is to take them separately, if you may. Thank you.
Okay. If that's your wish, I'm happy to accede to one member's request. Thank you. R1, shall I read it, Councillor Hoy?
Yes, please. I'm losing my voice.
Well, when I lose mine, you can take over. R1, to explore a green zero carbon electricity tariff for the council corporate supplies. Those in favour of the recommendation, please, members, including myself. Unanimous? Thank you. R2, to consider the future allocation of an additional £84,000 revenue budget for the purchase of the procurement of green diesel, hydro-treated vegetable oil for the council fleet currently using mineral diesel. Those in favour, please show your hands. Okay. Those against? Those abstaining? Councillor Wilson, thank you. That Recommendation is carried. R3, to consider the future allocation of £750,973 of capital funding to deliver energy-saving improvements to council assets as set out in the report. Can I have a show of hands in favour of the recommendation, please? Thank you. Those against? Those abstaining? Councillor Wilson, thank you. That R3 is carried. Thank you. As we now move to item 7, which is entitled the Rochford District Office Accommodation. There are 8 recommendations eventually to take. And I will ask Councillor Mrs. Vilma Wilson, Executive Lead Member for Public Spaces and Assets, to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, members. This report before you is seeking your approval for the temporary, no more than 2 years, relocation of our offices, of our council's office-based staff in South Street, Rochford, to the launch pad opposite Cherry Orchard in Rochford. This temporary move will not only avoid costs of circa £500,000 for capital works to South Street premises, it will in addition give a revenue cost saving, if approved, of £75,000. The costs of the move are detailed in this report. The current offices are in need of major refurbishment and give poor accessibility and is not conducive to overall office cross-networking amongst teams. These proposed office moves will be used for back office staff only. Rochford Library has been determined as the most appropriate site to relocate its front of house services to, thereby keeping a frontline presence in Rochford to serve its residents. All details of the proposed newly located service are within this report. Cash handling to collect and count cash is a further area that changes in these moves that are proposed, and that is for a contractor to carry out the entire works. These actions being to collect, count and bank the cash. This is for our car parks. This will see an additional cost of £3,000. Your approval is sought on safety grounds for our staff, and in addition, 12 hours of civil enforcement officers' time will be saved each week. As stated in this report, there are many other considerations, and these will be worked through with staff to support as smooth as possible transition for back office council staff. This temporary move will give a much improved working environment and also be a pilot for future office space needs of this council. Any decision on long-term office space will be brought to full council to make the final decision. In addition, I seek your approval for a new asset management strategy with full business cases being presented to a future meeting of the full council to seek agreement on next steps and timescales as per recommendations. In addition to the above, I am asking for your approval for a total of £94,000 be allocated from the Community Investment Plan reserve to engage in external support required. This is recommendation 4 in this report. Stick with me, I'm more than halfway through. Moving on, the Civic Suite in Rayleigh has been closed since 2020. This asset houses our council chamber. Capital works of £30,000 are required for the opening of the council chamber, foyer and toilets area only. By opening the council chamber, Mill Hall Arts and Events Centre will be available to be hired out at commercial rates. This will allow more use of our Mill Hall for our residents and allow the members to use the chamber. Due to the works needed to be carried out at Civic Suite, it is expected that this will be in place from September 24 this year. The funding for these works will be from the savings of vacating South Street. So, to summarise, to temporarily relocate back office staff to the launch pad, open a customer service reception at Rochford Library, cash collection, ongoing revenue costs of Launchpad, and relocation and relocated reception point in Rochford be funded from savings made from vacating South Street offices. To hold future meetings from September 24 at the Civic Suite, and that's future council meetings. That meetings in Civic Suite Council Chamber are to be funded from savings of vacating South Street offices. A new asset management strategy with full business cases are presented to a future full council meeting for 3 to 15, number 19 and number 57 South Street, Rochford, the Civic Suite and the Freight House. And I would just like to add that I wish to thank the Director of Assets for this comprehensive report. I seek your approval for all 8 recommendations, members. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs Wilson. Phoebe, thank you. I also wish to echo my thanks for your professional due diligence in presenting a complete and comprehensive report. Phoebe, is there anything you'd like to add to Councillor Mrs Wilson's presentation?
No, thank you, Chair. Happy to take any questions though.
Thank you. Members, we have the opportunity to ask questions of both Councillor Mrs Wilson and Phoebe Barnes. Councillor Reeves, you're first, I believe. I hope so. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Knowing the history of how the asset delivery programme was progressed, can I just confirm that recommendation 3, the items for consideration on it are grouped in 3 separate groups. Are they going to be treated as 3 separate projects, not as one complete one? Thank you.
Phoebe?
Yep, that is correct. We will be looking at each individual asset and bringing a new business case per asset rather than linking them all together.
Thank you.
Councillor Williams, you indicated? Not very clearly, but I hope there you go. Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I do have some concerns, and I'd like some information on the Cherry Orchard Park, the launch pad. I understand that parking is limited there. We will have a limited amount of spaces, and it's presumed that people may park in Cherry Orchard car park itself in our open space car park. This road that members would have to cross, or staff would have to cross, is a 50-mile-an-hour road with no formal crossings whatsoever. Can you confirm that this is not the case, please?
Again, Phoebe, this is in the hands of operations, please.
Chair, can I?
Oh, yes, of course,
Jonathan. Thank you, Chair, and thank you,
you.
Councillor Williams. With regard to the site, there's a number of options we're looking at with regard to transport arrangements. There is limited parking on the launch pad, but we feel with the numbers we'll have on a daily use that there should be ample, but obviously to ensure we've got contingency to make sure we support the staff. We're looking at other arrangements such as shared parking arrangements so people can park at the Freight House and share transport again if people are using that. But on top of that, we've got other arrangements with looking to discuss with other providers on that site that might be able to offer us. I want to mention organisations at this meeting, but we have started to speak to or start dialogue with some of those if we do need additional car parking, which we don't think we will, but we want to make sure we've got contingency. This doesn't impact any member of staff or visitors attending the launch pad.
If I may, Chairman.
You wish to ask further questions?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Can you
just further
reel them out in one go, please?
Yeah, just further clarification really on crossing the main Cherry Orchard Way there, that it is an extremely dangerous road at 50 miles an hour.
Mr Stevenson, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Yes, it is. I mean, there is an underpass, but again, obviously the underpass is further down. It's something that we could obviously late at night, winter nights, and things like that. We consider as though all of those considerations are being considered and how we support staff to ensure, first of all, their safety is paramount. So yeah, they are all being considered, and just to confirm, we'll make sure there's appropriate arrangements for staff safety.
Councillor Stanley.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to clarify a couple of items that although the officers will be in the new premises, part of the South Street will have to be kept available for products to be held in place, like maps and other products for environment, health and all that sort of thing. How long is that going to be? Do we understand how long that's going to be held for in relation to time, and how much of it is going to be? Is that going to be a third of the South Street, or is that going to be held in one place in a container somewhere, or something like that? That includes printing machines and that sort of thing. Yeah. Thank you.
Is that going to be Mr Stevenson? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stanley. Thank you, Chair. With regard to storage, we've done a lot of work over a number of years looking at moving out of South Street. So quite a lot of paperwork has been removed. There is paperwork and archives and things we need to keep and retain. The intention is why we're based on the site still until we've decided on its final decision on what we do with the site. We will consolidate all of that into a smaller space. There is some cost of still having the site mothballed. So there's no benefit for the council to find storage provision outside of the site until we decide its final destination, whatever that is, whether it's whatever happens with the site itself moving forward. So when that decision is made, obviously we'll have to move off site, but at the same time we'll be looking to find, as in this report, this is up to 2 years at the launch pad, hopefully how our decision on our final destination, that the storage that needs to go can start to go to that venue, wherever that is, and whatever decision we've made on that.
Councillor Mr Hoy.
Thank you, Chairman. Just two things. This has taken us quite a long time to get to this stage, and I'm sure Mr Stevenson is probably fed up of us. A number of us keep contacting him, asking for clarification around certain areas. So we've had a lot of clarification around how this is work, but I still do find it a very difficult decision to make. I have to say that. The question I've got is really around the business cases. We did agree in the budget an additional £25,000 to consult on the regeneration of Rochford. Will that consultation take place prior to the business cases and feed into the business cases? Because I think many residents of Rochford would feel that any consultation around the regeneration of Rochford, which ignores the freight house, wouldn't be done properly. Thank you.
Mr Stevenson? Or Phoebe?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Hoy. With regard to that, obviously that commitment by the councillors of that 25,000, from my understanding, and I might be referring to you as members, I definitely see a commitment to when that's going to happen. Obviously, if it happens in tandem with the business case, that's beneficial because we take a holistic approach to Rochford as a place rather than individual assets. And obviously that might be a reason why a delay of those business cases, because if we are consulting, because what we have agreed that we would consult on any of those business cases as well. So probably worth going through the vision and exercising engagement with members of the public and stakeholders, and then bring forward the business cases around the same time as well. So I would say trying to do that in tandem, but there hasn't been a commitment yet of time, but being pragmatic, probably best to do it in tandem.
Is that, do you wish to follow up on that?
That's an answer, and I won't add anything more to that. That's really the only question I've got. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I thought there were two, so thank you.
There were, but the second one's gone.
I'm sorry, members. The way the room is set out is very difficult, and I'm glad that Councillor Newport is here. Who's first? Is it
Julie.
Councillor Mrs Gooding? I believe you're next. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Will the fully costed business cases include to have the building surveys within the report? I don't want to see a similar situation where 3 years ago we've had situations that the work has been done and then it hasn't been carried through. I want to make sure that the business cases have the business building surveys involved so that it's possible and the costs are possible to take it forward rather than find that the costs are prohibitive.
I think this is one for you, Phoebe Barnes.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I can confirm that when we will be looking at business cases, the drawdown of the money from the Community Investment Plan Reserve is to utilise some of that funds to get condition surveys of the assets in question, measured surveys to inform the future costs of current operations and future costs of any decisions of recommendations of alternative uses, etc.
You have a follow-up question?
There's just one other question I have, Chair, and that's the hot desking situation in the launch pad. How will that accommodate some of the teams that need the necessary equipment, such as environmental health and corporate services? There's bulky equipment. I don't see how that will work in a hot desking situation.
Phoebe Barnes, yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
So we are liaising with teams currently at the moment around how they need to deliver their service, what they require. The hot desking at Launchpad will be a booking system, which will allow teams to book out spaces, book out areas, and they will be print them on site, etc. So staff can print that. And then the teams that have very specific needs, we will have to work with them to manage how they operate and what alternative options there are for them to enable them to do their job. We need to work with them as well as they work with us on this as well.
You're shaking your head, Councillor Gooding. Do you wish to follow up yet again?
Yeah, I'm wondering how this will be managed, working with you and then working with the amount of equipment that is required. That's what's concerning me. Because a hot desking situation, you've said if they're booking a hot desk, how does a member of staff manage that situation when they have various equipment that they need to do their job?
Can you add?
Yeah, just to add to what Ms. Phoebe Barnes has just said, in regard to, obviously there's different arrangements with different members of staff. Some people need different equipment. So obviously, I've experienced open plan office space in other environments, and we make arrangements for that. So with regard to fridge for environmental health, things like that, those arrangements will be put in place and support. There may be some, as this is a temporary move, some temporary arrangements put in place for those staff until we have a permanent move. So there is options we're talking through with that, but as Head of Paid Service, I'll give you assurance that we'll make the provision for all the staff that's required to deliver their duties.
Thank you. Can we move on? Was it Councillor Cripps? I'm sorry, it's difficult to see. Thank you. Councillor Cripps.
Thank you, Chair. Just a clarification, I think probably from Phoebe, nearly done it again. Regarding Appendix 3, pleased to see a timeline now on page 722. 723, page 723 confuses me though. There's appears to be a blank chart there with nothing on it. I think possibly there was an intention of the other aspects being modelled on there.
Yes, so originally we just focused on the move out of Launchpad. What we do need to do is now focus on and pick up the items of the Civic Suite and that as well, and feed that into the Gantt chart. Apologies, only the first page should have been published.
Okay, I thought in the draft I saw that second sheet was already there. Okay, maybe it's me, I got it wrong.
Councillor Cripps, I certainly don't recall seeing a longer timeline presented in any of the drafts I've seen anyway.
Not a longer timeline, it's just that what I've got is a sheet which
Yes, I have, same.
doesn't seem to serve a purpose, so.
No, it's a superfluous piece of paper, for which I apologise.
Okay, no problem.
Just strike it through.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Right, I'm looking around for other members' questions.
Sorry, Joe.
Oh, are you butting in, Vice Chair?
Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Mr Newport, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I welcome this report. I think the council and the staff members have been in limbo for far too long, so it's good to see that we're trying to move things along in a positive way. The first point of clarification, the recommendations we've got in front of us tonight are to ultimately relocate those staff, but I do understand that ultimately the decision to close South Street will lay with the head of paid service, if I could just have clarification on that. And the second point I'd like to just clarify on, and I think Mr Campbell's been left out of the thanks for dealing with the new reception service in the library. But just to clarify, this, and I think I did see it in here, but I can't find it. This actually enhances the library service. Will the library service be available 5 days a week as opposed to its current part-time offering? I'm sure that's my understanding. If that could be just clarified, thank you.
Mr Campbell, do you want to come across to the mic? Or are you able to bellow, or will Phoebe answer?
Phoebe.
Thank you.
I can speak for Greg. So yes, the point around the library offering is that, currently the library is open 3 days a week, is my understanding. The council will be based there 5 days a week, and the agreement is that we will be able to accept kind of people returning books and that as well. So it's not limited, so it enhances the library offering.
You have a second question, which was put
just
to
gonna ask
Mrs Stevenson.
Yeah.
So I think, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Newport. With regards to, I think the question was, is the decision with me around the final closure of
Yeah, the final.
South Street? So at this present time, in the report, we're looking at obviously relocating and mothballing until we bring the business cases. That could coincide with actually when we relocate. We might have had the business cases at the same time as when we relocate, because we haven't got a date of when that's going to relocate to the Launchpad. Subject to a decision being agreed today, we'll obviously start final negotiations with the Launchpad on what that date would look like. With regard to the future of South Street, obviously that will come back as a business case, but with regard to the sort of operational closure, yes, that will be with me to make sure that the building's safe and secure.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Stevenson. Members, have you any further questions? No? Okay, anybody have any further questions? Okay. In which case, after a good series of searching questions, we now need to turn to the recommendations. I'm going to ask at this point whether we're happy, whether you as members of the executive are happy to take R1 to R8 together en bloc. If you're not, then do you wish to take them individually, one by one, or do you wish to select one or more items to be taken separately? In other words, are there sub-blocks? Councillor Mrs Gooding.
Individually, please.
Individually, every single one. Okay. Thank you, Emily. I'll take them one by one, and I want a proposer and seconder on each, okay? I'm not going to take a proposer and seconder for the block because we're not dealing with them by block. So, I will read R1 and I'll seek a proposer and seconder. R1, that the council back office be relocated to the Launchpad, Airport Business Park, Cherry Orchard Way, Rochford, for a maximum of 2 years. I'm looking for a proposer and seconder. That's Councillor Eaves, seconder. Councillor Newport. Right, I'd like a vote in a show of hands in favour of the recommendation, please. Those against? Those abstaining? Right. I would like a declaration of the result of the vote, please. 8 for, 2 abstentions. That recommendation is carried. R2, that the Rochford customer reception be relocated to the Rochford Library. Is there a proposer? Councillor Stanley. Is there a seconder? Councillor Mr Newport. R2, I'd like a show of hands of those in favour of the recommendation, please. Thank you. Those against? Abstentions, please. Please declare the result of the vote.
8-4 and 2 abstentions.
8-4, 2 abstentions. The recommendation is carried. R3, that a new strategic asset management strategy coupled with the full business cases are presented to a meeting of the full council to seek agreement on the next steps and timelines for 3 to 15, 19 and 57 South Street, Rochford, the Civic Suite, Rayleigh, and the Freight House, Rochford. Proposer and seconder, please. Sorry, I can't take you both. Councillor Reeves is proposing, seconded by Councillor Mr Newport. I'd like to ask for a vote in hand of those in favour, please. Is that unanimous? Thank you. The vote is carried unanimously. R4, that a total of £94,050 be allocated from the Community Investment Plan, SIP, to reserve to engage the external support required to develop the business cases for the assets identified in R3. Proposer and seconder, please. Proposed by Councillor Mr Newport, seconded by Councillor Mr Cripps. Thank you. Like show of hands, those in favour, please. Clearly, please. Up high. I want them counted. Is that unanimous? Thank you. R5. That, subject to the approval of R1 and R2, a capital budget of £75,500 be allocated to the 2025 capital programme for the relocation from South Street offices. Proposer and seconder, please. Councillor Mr Newport and Councillor Mr Stanley. Thank you. I'd like a show of hands in favour of the recommendation, please. Against? Abstentions? Please declare the vote, please.
8-4, 2 abstentions.
8-4, 2 abstentions. The recommendation is carried. R6. That the ongoing revenue costs of Launchpad, reception and cash collection be funded from savings from the vacating South Street. Proposer and seconder, please. Councillor Cripps. And anybody else? Councillor Heaves. It's becoming too often. Okay. Okay. I'd like an indication, please, by hand. Those in favour, please. Okay. Those against? Abstentions? Please declare the vote.
8-4, 2 abstentions.
8-4, 2 abstentions. That R6 is carried. R7, that the council commits to holding its future council meetings at Civic Suite, Rayleigh, and that £30,000 is allocated from the 24-25 capital programme to enable the required works to reopen the chamber only. Proposer and seconder, please.
I'd like to propose that, please, Chairman.
Proposed by councillor Mr Hoy, seconded by councillor Mr Stanley. I'd like a show of hands in favour of the recommendation, please. Okay. Those against? Abstentions? Excuse me? Can you declare the vote, please?
8-4 and 2 abstentions.
8-4, 2 abstentions. R8. Subject to the approval of R7, the ongoing revenue costs for operating meetings of the council chamber at Civic Suite Rayleigh are to be funded from savings of vacating South Street. Proposer and seconder, please. It looks like we've got councillor Mr Hoy, followed by councillor Mr Stanley. Those in favour, please show of hands. In favour, please. Okay. Those against? Abstentions, please. Please declare the vote.
8-4, 2 abstentions.
Do you know, I've heard that somewhere before. 8-4, 2 abstentions. R8 is carried. That completes item 7. Could I ask the public to please restrain their comments? They are potentially disrupting the meeting. They're causing me to look up and to stop the vote. So will you please keep quiet? Thank you very much. Item 8, introduction of separate food waste. To consider the report of the Executive Lead Member for Environmental Services, Councillor Mr Stanley, setting out the introduction of a separate weekly food waste collection. Councillor Stanley, I assume you're going to present to your report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. The report on 8.1 consists of the Council in February 15th, 2023, agreed to the introduction of a separate weekly food waste collection, which was originally scheduled for introduction in the autumn of 23. However, the introduction of the service has been delayed for reasons set out in 2.3 to 2.7 of the report below. The Environment Act of 2021 now requires separate weekly food waste collection service to be introduced by March the 31st, 2026, revised from the previous of March 2025. In addition, the latest guidance from DEFRA suggests that existing arrangement of a weekly commingled collection of garden and food waste may now also be compliant. The introduction of a new service cannot progress without funding being secured from either Essex County Council or the government's new burdens funding that covers the cost of running of the service, approximately £400,000 a year. Until this shortfall is required, council budget to deliver the service has been addressed. Any further progress on the separate food waste collection service will be delayed. Critically, the commitment to purchase and deliver food caddies to every household in the district. I would recommend that R1, R2 and R3 are taken by the council for recommendation. Any further comment could be addressed to Marcus Hotton, Director of Environment. Thank you.
Marcus, do you wish to add anything to the report? I've downgraded you from councillor, by the way. I apologise for that, but nevertheless, we would be pleased to hear from you.
Oh, thank you, Ollie, for the disappointment. No other further comments to add, but I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Okay, members, you're welcome to put questions to the lead member and Mr Hotton. There are no questions. Councillor Mr Stanley, do you wish to move R1 to R3?
I can do, Chairman, if you wish me to.
I'll ask members before you attempt to, whether they wish to take them en bloc. We do, so please propose R1 to R3 in full, please.
Thank you, Chair. R1, that the Director of the Environment Services secures external funding through Essex County Council and DEFRA to address the shortfall of revenue funding required. R2, to delegate the Director of Environment Services and the S151 officer in consultation with the lead member of the Environment Services, leader of the council, in brackets, or chair of the Environment and Climate Change Committee, close brackets, authority to implement a separately food waste collection once the necessary funding outlined in R1 has been addressed. R3, to delegate to the Director of the Environment and the S151 officer in consultation with the lead member of the Environment Services, leader of the council or chair of the Environment and Climate Change Committee, authority to award contracts for the purchase and delivery of food caddies once the necessary funding outlined in R1 has been addressed.
Thank you, Councillor Stanley, and I will second R1 to R3. Thank you. Right, I'd like to now put R1 to R3 en bloc to the executive. Please, I'd like a show of hands in favour of R1 to R3, please. Looks unanimous to me. Thank you. That motion is carried, or all three motions or three recommendations are carried. Thank you. We now move to item 9. Item 9, the discretionary non-domestic rate relief 24-25. This report is to be presented by Councillor Michael Hoy, Executive Lead Member, Resources, Climate Change and Economy. And I believe we also have Pam Shepherd here who can support, if necessary, for members' questions. Councillor Hoy.
Thank you, Chairman. This report takes into account the Non-Domestic Rating Act Regulations 2023. This has the effect of changing the way discretionary rate relief is awarded, namely the extent of backdating and funding thereon. The proposed approach is to separate backdating arrangements into two categories. Firstly, when it is council funded, the proposal is to backdate to the 1st of April of the year in question. When it is government funded, it is backdated 6 years, although, as the regulations came into effect on the 1st of April 2023, government funded backdating can only go back to that date. The recommendation that I'm asking you to approve is R1 on page 9.1, to approve an amendment to the existing policy for the granting of discretionary non-domestic rate relief. Thank you. And I'm very thankful that Pam Shepherd is here to take any questions.
Members, you have the welcome opportunity to ask detailed questions about this report. There are no questions. There is no further discussion required. So, Councillor Hoy, would you like to put R1?
Yes, obviously I need a seconder. I haven't got that yet, but R1.
If you put it, the seconder will hopefully appear.
To approve an amendment to the existing policy for the granting of discretionary non-domestic rate relief. I propose that. Okay,
seconder, please. Councillor Eaves, thank you. Right, we'll go straight to a vote, and I'd like those in favour of the recommendation R1 to show their hands, please. Is that unanimous? Thank you. R1, item 9 is duly passed. Item 10, in-house leisure provision. Councillor Mrs. Gooding, the lead member for leisure, tourism and wellbeing, will present the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. So the report is obviously in front of us, but the Leisure Working Group have discussed options whether the procurement process that is currently happening, if that doesn't reach the conclusion that we want in the time factor, the leisure working group were looking to have the contingency plan for an in-house option should the current procurement process not be successful. The current service provider to not be extended, but instead an agency would be able to act as a holding mechanism until further procurement process can be achieved. That was the discussion that I had with the Phoebe Barnes.
I didn't see all of that in the report, so Phoebe Barnes, can you assist, please?
Just to confirm, I think the report is initiating that the work is carried out before the procurement is concluded in order to have the option presented. Does that address the question?
It addresses the question that I haven't put, which I congratulate you on guessing so astutely. In which case, I'm not sure that R1 reflects that.
So, just if we do that, just to come back on kind of an overview of the whole report. So, as Councillor Gooding has highlighted, the working group has been established of the executive, and because of the executive's decision made on the 6th of December 2022, which is to go out and procure an operator, the working group's terms of reference have been set up on that decision on the 6th of December. Therefore, the working group, through their discussions and their work, have looked at understanding what other options there are out there if the procurement was to fail. Therefore, they are recommending back up to the executive to allow them to explore that option, because their kind of terms of reference, I suppose, at the moment prohibit it based on the previous decisions. Therefore, in order to do that, we need the support of our current consultants who are supporting us on the procurement to look at what the risk, the cost of and the timelines of an in-house operation would be. That would be then presented back to the working group, and their findings and recommendations would then be reported back to the relevant committee, because it will be after elections, and their findings presented. So there are options there, and everyone, I suppose, is in a position of understanding what the options are should the procurement not acquire the relevant operator we are seeking. But the work needs to be done, I suppose, in tandem. We can't do the work once we've concluded the procurement because of risk timelines as well. If the procurement is not successful, we need to make a decision immediately on what our next options are following that. Hopefully that clarifies the matter.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification. I'm just going to need to ask the lead member, Councillor Gooding, whether or not she agrees with that summary.
Totally agree. Yeah, obviously the recommendations don't reflect that, and I understand that, but that was our discussion, and the whole reason is a contingency plan should the current procurement process not be successful.
Right, I want to leave this open, and thank you, members, for allowing me to ask the first and definitive question on the subject. It's now open, obviously, to you to ask further questions of Councillor Mrs. Gooding or Councillor Barnes. Councillor Barnes, you've been promoted as well. I hope you're pleased. Councillor Mrs. Newport.
Thank you, Chair. Phoebe, it's just to clarify, it was not a working group of the exec, it's a cross-party working group, wasn't it? It's just going back to the exec, the findings of the working group are going back to the exec, yeah?
So yes, it is a cross-party working group, but it's a working group set up from the executive lead member, Councillor Gooding. So.
Okay, thank you.
I just need to remind members that there won't be an executive after April the 25th, or more particularly May the 2nd. and that we will have moved to a committee system. So therefore, it'll be to the appropriate committee in the new structure.
Thank you,
Councillor
Chair.
Stanley.
Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Stanley, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. On 10.4, 6.1, on the 6th of December 2022, the executive agreed that 105,000 was to be allocated from the general funds to this purpose. Is that still in agreement, or will that be carried forward to the Committee of Leisure?
Thank you, Chair. We have an earmarked reserve for the purposes of funding this procurement, and for as long as it's not all used up, it will be carried over. So the balance of available funding after the allocation of the sum referred to in the recommendations is still there for the future use.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think there seems to be general agreement that the R1 is a little unclear as to what we're looking at here. Can I suggest an amendment again that we add at the end of the service, at the end of the R1 sentence, in tandem with the procurement process? That, to my mind, seems to reflect a little bit more of the conversation that's gone on, am I right?
So I'm just making a note. I'll ask the lead member, Councillor Mrs Gooding, whether she's prepared to accept that amendment.
Yes, Chair, thank you.
So that becomes your recommendation. In which case, if there's are there any further questions? Any further matters to raise? Councillor Cripps, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is one for Julie. Could you just elaborate a little bit on in-house, what that means? How far does it go? Are we employing people, managing people? Just a rough idea, what sort of model you're thinking of? Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair. So the in-house option would be, should we find ourselves in a situation where the procurement process has not been successful, we will have had, with this funding that we're asking for in R2, we will have had the background work done so that we can look at an agency to take this forward. We wouldn't be expecting the staff to be doing this themselves. Staff would be 2P'd over the current staff. It is the usual process, but I'll let Phoebe correct me if I'm wrong, but usually they would 2P over via the agency. The agency would be a holding mechanism until such time that the procurement could be successful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, members? I'm getting a real crick in my neck looking around like this. This is going to have to stop. Okay, any further questions? The R1 still doesn't make sense to me, I'm sorry to tell you. It's been pointed out to me that it's still drafted on the terms of determine whether or not, and even with the addition that Councillor Reeves has put forward. So I'll ask the lead member to put something forward, please.
Phoebe, would you like to?
Yep, I can support on this. I can suggest that the recommendation is changed to the executive are to determine that the leisure working group will consider reviewing an in-house leisure service in tandem with the current procurement.
Doesn't work. Please, Emily Yule has a suggestion here. I'd like, as Emily is the monitoring officer and has been listening very carefully to our dilemma, I believe she has something to offer to us. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, I hope you'll indulge me with some proposed wording based on the conversations that have been happening. So my suggested wording for recommendation R1 would be to amend it to say that the terms of reference of the leisure working group be expanded to include reviewing an in-house leisure service in tandem with the current procurement process. Thank you, Chair.
Would be clear to me.
Chair, if I may repeat that. So the recommendation reads that the terms of reference of the leisure working group be expanded to include reviewing an in-house leisure service in tandem with the current procurement process.
We could short circuit this, and if it's read by Emily Ewell, if you would care to propose it and I ask for a seconder, we can then put it to the vote. Go again.
Thank you, Chairman. So recommendation R1 will be that the terms of reference of the leisure working group be expanded to include reviewing an in-house leisure service in tandem with the current procurement process. And recommendation R2 will remain as published in the report, which is following agreement of R1 that a budget of £6,175 is allocated from working balances to fund the in-house review by SLC.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Use the words proposed as usual.
I propose.
Okay, seconder, please. Councillor Williams, thank you so much. Okay, we'll take them together. I think it's really evident that they belong together. So with your agreement, I'll put R1 and R2 together and ask for a show of hands in favour of them both, please. It's unanimous to me. Thank you very much. That R1, R2, as revised, are passed. Okay, item 11. Item 11 is Swain Park bridal lighting. And I believe that Councillor Lisa Newport, Executive Lead Member of Communities and Health, will present the report.
Thank you, Chair. So the Swain Park bridal lighting, I hope you've all had a chance to read the report is in front of you. And I also hope you've had a chance to look at the photos which were circulated earlier today. I would therefore like to ask you to approve recommendation 1, which is that the executive agree to allocate up to £30,000 from the Community Safety Fund for the installation of lighting at Swain Park Bridal. Rayleigh Town Council have advised that they are willing to contribute funds of £15,000 to the overall cost as set out in 2.6 of this report. Thank you.
Members, if you please. No questions. Councillor Mrs. Newport, you are putting those motions to recommendations to the committee?
Yes, please.
Do you have a seconder? Councillor Mr. Newport. It's a Newport thing. Okay. I would like, please, for a show of hands in favour of those recommendations, please. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. Those recommendations are passed. Item 12 is, well, it doesn't read well as it sits in front of me because it reads as Eco 4, GBIS and Hug 2 update. I'm sure, Councillor Hoy, you can remind members what all those mnemonics mean, if they are mnemonics or indeed just references. And it is an update on a previous report placed before the executive. Councillor Hoy, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, the mnemonics are explained in paragraph 1.1 on page 12.1. So I'll be very brief. I think my throat is very sore at the moment. This is given the application and installations from the grants so far. So with in paragraph 1.2, you will see the Grant 2 Tower Park Mobile Homes, HUG 2. There's 70 applications, inquiries, 53 quote surveys with 53 installations. After that, it goes down a lot. We've got, for the additional home upgrade grant to the bricks and mortar homes, there are 29 applications, inquiries, 29 quote surveys and 2 installations. There is explanation around why that is below. The Eco4 at the moment has 1 application and no installations, and the Great British Installation Scheme, GBIS, has 1 application and no installations at the moment. I think Marcus Hotton would take any questions on if there are any. Thank you.
I have a question, if I may put this to Mr. Hotton. Are those results what you would expect to see? Are they running, as we would be satisfied with, or does it indicate that things aren't going as well? I just want to get a feel for the level of performance that we're seeing. Thank you.
Thank you. It's probably a mixed bag. So I'd say the home upgrade grants is actually doing better than expected, perhaps, but the energy company obligation 4 scheme, Eco4, perhaps is not doing as well as we wish, and that's something we're seeking to address by widening that out to further companies to offer that installation service. So I think there is an issue there. But it's not just unique to Rochester. I think it's unique to that to anyone within that scheme and using that provider. So I think they're just oversubscribed. But we are seeking to address that. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, really.
Is that the action, that the sole action that's being taken to widen the provider?
Yes, that's correct.
Is there no other action that can be used in terms of advertising and publicity to benefit our residents?
So we've been particularly active on that already. I think it is actually perhaps concerns with the provider itself. So I think that's where the bottleneck is.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Houghton. Any other questions from other members? That is, I believe, a quarterly report for noting, and I assume that will go to the Emergency Climate Committee in due course in the next municipal year. Thank you. So, members, do we note it?
Noted.
Thank you. Item 13. This is an update on the Mill Arts and Events Centre to be presented by Councillor Vilma Wilson, Executive Member for Public Spaces and Assets, and obviously with the support of Phoebe Barnes. The report is for noting, but I'll ask Councillor Mrs. Wilson to present the salient and summary points, please.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so the Mill Hall Arts and Events Centre update. This report gives an update since the reopening on Monday, the 12th of September 2022, which I have to say seems to be a long time ago now. The key points I've picked up in this report is that the current operations have seen a variety of events since reopening, and plans are for these to expand as the team explores opportunities to organise and run future events. Market research and consultation will be carried out and presented to full council in the new municipal year. The capital programme for Mill Hall is focused on maintaining the building's compliance to ensure Mill Hall remains safe and operational. This report, as the Chair has said, is to be noted, but with the additional recommendations from overview and scrutiny meeting, which was held on the 5th of March 2024. And members, if you can bear with me, I'm going to read out these two recommendations. As I say, these are from the overview and scrutiny committee held earlier this month, the 5th of March. Recommendation 1 says, a cross-party working group is appointed by the council at the annual council meeting in May 24 to act as a steering group in matters relating to the Mill Hall Arts and Events Centre. That officers prepare a proposed terms of reference for this working group to be presented to the annual council meeting. In addition, that the first meeting of this working group be held in June 2024. Recommendation 2 is to myself, the lead member of assets, and it says that the market research is concluded by September 2024 and the results reported to the next possible meeting of the working group after that date. Members, I ask that you please note this report. Thank you.
Members, I'd just like to draw your attention, there is no actions for the Executive Committee to take upon the recommendations of overview and scrutiny. They are to full council in the form of annual council and a direction to the lead member. As it is an update, there may be questions from members of the executive. You're free to ask questions of Councillor Mrs Wilson and Phoebe Barnes. Councillor Mr Newport.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, to me, it looks like we're going in the right direction with this. Looking at page 13.6, 4.3 and the budget, the costs are reducing. What I am concerned about, though, is the marketing underspend on budget, and I think we need to up the ante on the marketing. I do appreciate that's 23-24, but I think we need to focus that to increase our income. And I hope that the marketing plan will come forward in due course for the new committee. Thank you.
So those are comments to be minuted and noted.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the executive? In which case, at the request of Councillor Mrs Wilson, will you note that report? Thank you, noted. I now move to item 14, which I am moving from the chair. Exclusion of the press and public. And I'll go as slow as I can to make it easy. To agree that the press and public be excluded from the meeting for the remaining business on the grounds that exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 would be disclosed. Is there a seconder, please? Councillor Eaves. Thank you, members of the public, for attending. I'm sorry to ask you to leave, but that is where we stand. Members of the council may remain.
Yeah. Chairman, I just want to advise you that my throat is not great, and I think I'll best leave. Thank you.
Of course. I need a vote on the motion I've moved. Can I ask those in favour to show a vote of hand in favour by hand? It's carried. The vote is carried. We're now exempt. Could I go home too? I'm delaying while the live stream is